This video will show how to use joints in assemblies in Autodesk Inventor. In this example here, I have two parts that are meant to fit together and work together as a joint. I have the track, which is my base part. You'll notice that it's got the one here at the top. It's got the push pin in it. It's going to be holding still. And then we have this slider block where you can see the T shape here is supposed to slide over the top of this and then slide back and forth in that fashion. Rather than putting on constraints which will hold it in place indefinitely, we can instead use the joint command. To use the joint command, you choose it here, and then you could either choose what type of constraint you want, or you can let it be on automatic and it'll do its best to figure out which one you want. For now, we're going to leave this on automatic. You begin by picking the part that's going to be moving. In this case, I'm going to pick the slider itself, and I want the middle of this to line up with the middle of this. So notice that when I get to the different points, there's all the different ways I can orient this thing. But I know that I want, the middle of this lined up with the middle of this. So I'll pick the middle of the slider block first. Notice the little arrow. We're going to come back to that arrow in a few minutes. I want that to be lined up with the middle of this part here, so I pick. You'll see that it moves over and then it kind of wiggles a little bit. I'll do that again. It kind of wiggles a little bit, showing that it's a rigid constraint. It's a rigid joint. If I choose OK and I come in here to move this, notice I get the little Ghostbuster sign there. It's not going to allow it to move. So it's almost what we want, but not quite. But rather than deleting that constraint, what I can do is I can edit that constraint. So if I go to the browser and hit the plus, I can see that this part has a rigid constraint. In order to fix that, or to change that, or edit that, I right click and choose edit. And now you can see that I get that same edit joint box that pops up. So I can pull this down and say that I want it to be a slider. When I do that, you'll notice in our animation that now it slides the wrong way. See, AutoCAD doesn't, or Inventor doesn't realize that we want it to slide this way. It's all based on the little arrow that was on the part originally. So to change the direction, what we want to do is we want to change the alignment. So I'm going to say I want to change the alignment for the part number 1. I'm going to pick that lower corner right there, and basically it's going to represent the direction of this thing that it's supposed to slide. So I'll pick there, and then it automatically switches to number 2. So now I can pick something that's going to be parallel with that. I could pick that surface there, I could pick that corner, I could pick that corner, I could pick that corner. Doesn't matter, as long as the two are parallel. Pick, and then if I choose animate now, you'll see that it slides in the direction that I want. So if I choose OK, now it slides in the direction that I want, but you'll notice that I can slide it a little bit too far and a little bit too far, so that I can actually slide it off of the object. If we wanted to limit this so that it would only go from one end to the other, we can do that. Starting off, if I go back to inspect and use measure, if I measure this thing, you'll see that the track itself is 5 inches long, and that this part here is 1 inch long. So that means that it has basically 4 inches of travel. I could go 2 inches that way or 2 inches that way, or if it was all the way at one end, it could go 4 inches the other direction. So in order to set up some limits so that it won't go off of this object anymore, you go again back here, right click, choose edit, and now on the limits tab, you're going to say I want to create some linear limits. So I want my start to be, say, -2 inches, and I want my end to be a +2 inches. So when I say OK, now this, when I click to drag this, it'll slide all the way to the end, and then it stops. It won't let me go any further. Or if I could go this way, it stops. It won't let me go any further.